the next step in our process is to think about moving from some large number n risky assets and thinking about this large number n. It must be the case that as we add more and more risky assets, as n gets bigger and bigger, eventually it becomes this thing called the market portfolio. Eventually P becomes portfolio M. And for now we can think about this as, well, sort of in theory, it's a portfolio that everybody owns. And so far we've said that, well, everybody owns the same portfolio because it's the optimal portfolio, so therefore everybody owns a share of the market portfolio. Maybe that's not the best way to think about it. The best way to think about this is that the sum of everyone's portfolio, everyone together, must own the market portfolio. And so we all own a little bit of Apple, and then I own 9 other stocks, and then one person owns a little bit of Apple, and then 9 different stocks, and then a little bit of Apple and 9 different stocks. So when you aggregate everybody's portfolio together, you get the market portfolio. And so we will, as we progress with some of the math, instead of thinking about portfolio P as a portfolio of a large number n risky assets, we're going to start thinking about this as portfolio M, which is the market portfolio. The next thing we're going to talk about is this idea of general diversification. And here's the experiment. And this is an experiment that was done long ago. Essentially what they did was they looked at 1,000 portfolios. Each portfolio had a single random stock. And they calculated the standard deviation of each of these one stock portfolios and calculated the average standard deviation. So again, 1,000 portfolios, each with the standard deviation, and they calculated the average of the standard deviations of this one stock portfolio. And then they created 1,000 portfolios with 2 random stocks. And again, they had 1,000 different standard deviations from which they calculated the average. They did this for 3 stocks and so on, 4 stocks, and they ended up with 99 stocks in a portfolio and then 1,000 stocks in a portfolio. And so they had 1,000 different average standard deviations for portfolios with 1 stock, 2 stocks, and so on. And then they plotted them. They plotted the 1,000 average standard deviation of portfolio values, 1 for each number of stocks in the portfolio, and here's the results. So when you had 1 stock in the portfolio, the average standard deviation was 50%. 2 stocks, it got lower. 4 stocks, it got lower. 6, 8, and so on, until you can see it became fairly flatlined. And this is the graph that's in our textbook. Here's one that I think is a little bit better. And here's the idea, is that as I get to 10 stocks from 1 stock, you can see I have a significant decrease in the portfolio risk just by holding 10 random stocks as opposed to just holding a single random stock. And as you get to 20, you have another fairly significant decrease, and as you get to 30, well, a little bit more of a decrease, but beyond 30, you don't get much of a decrease even at 1,000. And we can sort of see this, well, they sort of lost the 30, but somewhere in here, there isn't much of a decrease between holding 30 random stocks and holding 1,000 random stocks. And so there's sort of 2 things to talk about. The first is this pink zone, and we would think about this pink zone as risk that we can get rid of just by diversifying. If I hold 30 or 40 random stocks, it's the same as holding 100 or 1,000 random stocks, but I have gotten rid of a significant portion. I've gone from 50% standard deviation down to about 20% standard deviation. And so I've lost a significant amount of risk just by diversifying. Now the risk that's down here that I can't get rid of even if I hold 1,000 stocks, and it's not much different between holding 30 or 40, this is referred to as undiversifiable risk or systematic risk or market risk. This is risk that I'm going to incur even if I hold a lot of individual stocks. But I can compare this with the portion of the risk that I can get rid of, the diversifiable or the unsystematic or the idiosyncratic or the unique or the firm specific. So there's 3 different synonyms for this type of risk, the market risk. There's 5 different synonyms for this type of risk. And the next thing we're going to look at in the next chapter is to extend this to measures of systematic risk. Think about how much risk is in here, and we're going to do this by looking at the capital asset pricing model beta. And we'll do that when we move not from chapter 7 to chapter 8, but from chapter 7 to chapter 9.